must be absolute, no matter what it may take. Years ago, we fought here as classmates. But not today. Forward, now! So we fight on.
Big spoilers ahead for Three Houses, obviously. If you haven't played through Edelgard's route, or maybe just any other route besides hers, actually, I would recommend you do that before listening to stuff like this. Also, at some point, I kind of pass over the truth about Flayn and Zedith's blood, or something like that. Just, if you haven't finished their support logs, or maybe if you just don't care, I guess it's fine. But, yeah, just know that happens. Today we're going to take a close look at Edelgard's character, her background, personality, her actions, whether or not she's crazy or just, you know, evil, maybe even normal. To determine these things, it's important to get to know her first as just Edelgard, or Elle, if you know her like that. Edelgard is heir to the throne of the Adrestian Empire of Fodlan, a continent made up of 3 major territories connected by the Church of Seiros and its belief system, which is located at Fodlan Center, the 2 other territories being the Kingdom of Fargus and the Alliance Territory, which is mostly a collection of noble houses which separated from the kingdom. I should explain crests a little bit since they're so important to Edelgard's story and Fodlan as a whole. They're like magic birthmarks that give everyone born with them a sort of superpower. These powers are really only useful in combat, but they also determine a person's worth in Fodlan due to a nobility system which dictates that only people with crests are fit to rule. These things are touted as gifts from the goddess, which isn't entirely a lie, but a story for later. I mostly wanted to point this out because gameplay could lead you to believe that crests aren't all that important and their effects are mostly minute after all. Like, I went through an entire playthrough and not even really noticed when these things would activate, and I know I'm not the only one. For example, throughout the game we see 3 characters wielding the Crest of Flame: Byleth, Nemesis, and Edelgard. Now, Byleth and Edelgard have a pretty decent lifesteal effect that procs on random chance. Nemesis also has this ability, but in the War of Heroes we see that he at least has a mild control over actual fire, instead of just some kinda underwhelming effect. Just thought I'd give a little example of the importance of crests, seeing as making a world without them is a pretty big goal for Edelgard. The reason Edelgard is next in line for the throne is because every sibling she had died to the effects of horrific blood experiments performed on them, all for the purpose of learning how to bestow 2 crests upon one person successfully, for the resurrection of Nemesis. Only 2 people are known to have survived these blood experiments, being Edelgard and Lysithea. The other subjects died slow, painful deaths. Edelgard actually had the misfortune of having to watch all of her siblings die agonizingly to come out the only survivor. Those who slither in the dark, a group of humans living underground in Empire territory, had enough power within the Empire to make this happen, in large part to Edelgard's uncle, Lord Arundel, who wasn't actually her uncle, but Thalis, the leader of those who slither, in disguise. Edelgard despises how highly people value crests and how they determine one's value in society with a passion, partly because she's seen that people should be valued for their merit instead of their birthright, and partly because she never wants anyone to have to go through the kind of experiments she had to, just so people could flan around their fancy birthmarks. Along with that, Edelgard and those who slither in the dark began using each other in equal partnership, for Edelgard to abolish Crest Society, and for those who slither to kill the remaining children of the goddess. Of course, Edelgard didn't know that part, but Edelgard is a genuinely kind, patient, and understanding person in all of her support logs. She's especially patient with Ferdinand, who would constantly challenge her to contests of superiority, closing out those support logs with nothing but respect and appreciation for someone who's honestly more of a pest to her than a friend. Jeez. She even decides to keep Ferdinand around during her war instead of locking him up like his father, showing she's not some inherently cruel or spiteful person, even though that would have been super easy to do. Not only that, but she even went out of her way to conjure up Linhardt's dream job. The woman takes time out of her royal day to do some gardening with Bernadetta, which is more difficult than it sounds with her paranoia. Edelgard absolutely has a heart of gold, but there's far more to her than just that. Edelgard is the embodiment of confidence. She is 100% sure that the path she chooses is correct, and never falters. After declaring war on the church, she knows she'll have to kill anyone in her way. Even friends, even people who are just trying to do the right thing like soldiers. However, that's not to say she wasn't willing to do anything unethical before the war actually began. As we all should know by now, Edelgard is the Flame Emperor, who, for the most part, doesn't accomplish much. Unfortunately, not accomplishing much is not the same thing as not trying. The very first thing we see Edelgard do as the Flame Emperor is hire bandits to kill noble students. Now, it's unknown if she planned on being attacked herself, along with Claude and Dimitri, or if the attack was just meant for random students, since all the bandit says is,
"What is this nonsense? All I was told was to kill as many noble pipsqueaks as possible. No one said anything about the Knights of Dan Saros being on our trail."
You have proven yourself worthless, distracted by something so trivial. I had hoped you would achieve your goal despite the setback.
When I noticed this on my second playthrough, I thought this was maybe bad proofreading, or at worst, bad character writing, because she clearly cares for her friends and just people in general. As the Flame Emperor, she even goes out of her way to let the professor know that she had no idea those who slither were experimenting on the people of Vermeer Village, and probably would have stopped them had she known. But, looking at it again, I realized that hiring those bandits is perfectly within character for Edelgard. Over the course of the game, you'll notice that Edelgard has no issue killing anyone that just happens to be in her way, even killing specific people for the sake of gaining advantage. I think her disagreeing with the usage of Vermeer Village for experiments had more to do with her not wanting anyone else to have to live through the kind of blood experiments she experienced, and less about not wanting innocent people to die. Which means this ends up just coming into conflict with her core ethics as a person. Actually, if the future King of Fargus and Alliance leader were to be killed while under the supervision of the monastery, people would begin losing faith in the Church of Saros, which would mean that more nobles would be willing to fight on her side when she declares war on the church. Because of that, I feel that her hiring those bandits to kill Claude and Dimitri was well within character. The biggest question is, did she not expect to be nearby when this occurred? Did she think it was possible to just beat them after Claude and Dimitri were killed while she was left alone? It's like, it's not how it works. From then on, the Flame Emperor doesn't do anything plainly evil. She's actually probably the only reason Flame ended up surviving her encounter with those who slither in the dark after they got away with her blood, just because Edelgard still thinks of Flame as a friend and probably a child, even though she's well aware of her contributions to Crest Society, which she hates so much. After this, we go on Edelgard's wild ride. After gaining access to the Holy Tomb, she reveals her hidden army and tries to take all of the crest stones hidden inside. Here's the real messed up part. She's taking these crest stones to turn people into demonic beasts and use them in the war against the church, which she should be entirely against, seeing her hatred of blood experimentation and the very essence of Crest Society. As a matter of fact, if you join her side, she doesn't make use of the stones at all. It's just an afterthought, but in any other route, it's demonic beast every other fight. It just seems a bit weird that she's allowing the use of the stones for that purpose, especially considering those who slither are the ones turning people into demonic beasts. Random people, likely not even soldiers. There was literally a chapter about them turning students into demonic beasts and using them to cause havoc at the monastery. What I'm saying is, at this point, she's willing to go against her principles if it means she wins. That's how determined she is to reach her end goal. If you don't join her, Edelgard kinda fails to accomplish anything in Part 2, after you come back of course, but if you do join her, then she kills any and everyone on her way to taking down the church. This is war, mind you, but only you get the two options to spare people if Byleth is the one to defeat them, meaning Edelgard's perfectly fine with lopping off poor old Claude's head just for kinda being in the way of her shortcut to the kingdom, unless you, her voice of reason, steps in and says, "Hey, chill." Eventually, she makes it to kingdom territory, kills Dimitri and other friendly faces, depending on if you recruited them or not, and finally reaches Rhea and smashes her head in. You help too. It's group assignment, no slacking. Which is really sad because she only went crazy because of you and Edelgard anyway, but stuff happens. I can't wait to talk about Rhea and her self-worship and how creepy that actually is in a different video, but yeah. Off-screen, they defeat those who slither in the dark and unify Fodlan. There really wasn't a reason for the last few fights to be off-screen, besides it being a little less epic than slaying a dragon, I guess. Also, you get your classic final stage with a dragon boss, but still, it's really lame. While I'm at it, it's worth mentioning that despite Edelgard's route being the most antagonistic, Byleth and her both have the power of the Fire Emblem inside of them in the form of the Crest of Flames, which is a physical crest stone inside of Byleth being Sothis' heart, while Edelgard had a really dangerous blood transfusion that was kinda the catalyst for the whole story. Implying that every ending in this game is just as plausible canon as much as the next, even if it does make you feel terrible inside the whole time, knowing that you're not really fighting for a just cause as much as you're just killing a nice dragon lady who only wanted to see her mom again, even if she is a little messed up. I hope Edelgard's route was the first one you played, because it sure would probably make you feel bad if it was like the second or the last. To get why Edelgard is convinced that Rhea is a monster who's controlling Fodlan from behind the scenes, it's helpful to know both sides of the story of Fodlan, and by both sides I mean the actual history and the one Edelgard just happened to hear. The tale is actually a bit confusing at first, which makes it difficult to fully understand her convictions on a first playthrough, especially while not getting to hear all of Fodlan's history on any one run of the game, so I'll do my best to explain it here. The progenitor god Sothis appeared one day, took the form of a human, and blessed the people of the land with knowledge and skills to advance civilization. Eventually, the humans began to think of themselves as gods and challenged Sothis and her children to battle. The humans lost, of course, but some fled underground, becoming those who slither in the dark. Those who slither held a grudge against Sothis and her children for nearly wiping out humanity in a war humanity started. Eventually, Fodlan found peace again, and Sothis fell into a long slumber in the Holy Tomb. The children of Sothis who stayed behind built a settlement in Xanadu to protect the Holy Tomb, but later, Nemesis, the King of Liberation, brought an army to massacre those children of the goddess and her followers, giving Xanadu the nickname of the Red Canyon, as it was painted red with blood that day. Nemesis and the 10 elites crafted weapons out of the bones and hearts of the children of Sothis and Sothis herself, their bones being the make of the weapons and their hearts being the crest stones used to power them. The 10 elites used these weapons to slaughter the people of Xanadu, killing them with the bones of their brethren. After all that, Rhea was the only survivor of Xanadu, and in her desire for revenge, she fostered the founding of the Empire and Crest Society as a whole by bestowing her blood upon the first Emperor. Saints Keyhole, Sethline, and Indek also granted their crest to humans, not only for their use in the upcoming battle with Nemesis, but to keep up the illusion that crests were some mythical gifts from the goddess that a chosen few received. Saint Macule still held a grudge against the humans, so he didn't give his blood. Nevertheless, Seiros and the 4 saints waged war on Nemesis and the 10 elites, won, took back the bones of their people, and from there the church and teachings of Seiros were born, or rather the Church of Rhea. In actuality, it's still a little creepy when you think about the fact that whenever Rhea or the other saints talk about praise and belief, they're actually talking about praising themselves, but you know, it doesn't make them inherently evil. Rhea's still a cool guy. Cool dragon? Woman, lady. Dragon lady. Yeah. The story that Edelgard's family passed down was in line with the true story of the church, but with huge chunks cut out and flipped around. At first, one might think that those who slither was responsible for changing up the story in their favor, so that the current emperor at any given time would secretly bear a grudge against the church, but apparently those who slither in the dark just surfaced one day. Sure, they were planning revenge for over 995 years, but they had no real influence in the Empire until they body-snatched Volkard von Arendale, who was an avid supporter of the church until the day he got caught slipping. It would seem that emperors of the past just ended up forgetting bits and pieces of the full story of Fodlan, which would make sense if they remain in power till they're too senile to rule properly. Forgetting is just a part of growing older, right, Gerald?
By the time you're forgetting your own age, you're past the point of caring.
Anyway, this information is passed down from emperor to emperor, likely in a long-term goal to finally end the Immaculate One's reign over Fodlan. The way Edelgard knew the story was that the relics were created by mankind and taken by Saros, who is Rhea, after killing the 10 elites, after which Saros manipulated the people of the world and used them to defeat Nemesis. Adrustia actually sees Nemesis, the King of Liberation, as kind of a tragic hero that was just wrongly defeated in a simple dispute over the rule of Fodlan. In reality, it was more like,
I'm gonna make him give back our past. Take back everything that we've lost. And I won't rest until we do.
So because she got some misinformation, being that Rhea stole the relics instead of Nemesis stealing them from actual corpses, she believes that Rhea is just some monster, and that's enough for her to want to overthrow the church. Along with all the other stuff. If you think about it, the way she heard the story wasn't necessarily wrong. Saros did take the relics back from the 10 elites. She wasn't actually the thief. Even though it doesn't help that Rhea's history of Fodlan is fabricated. Her and Tethys just kinda play that off to hide their identities and, you know, to have created a religion to control Fodlan. But that doesn't mean she's evil. Again, she's just doing the best she can to keep the peace. Cool dragon lady. But because of this slightly altered history of Fodlan Edelgard heard, combined with her hatred of Crest Society, which Rhea created, Edelgard decided that she would be the emperor who finally took down the Church of Saros and freed Fodlan from the oppression of a monster disguising herself as a human. So, in short, Edelgard isn't necessarily evil, just misled and traumatized. Make no mistake, every decision Edelgard makes is of her own volition, and she's 100% confident that she's doing the right thing, but really, she just had the misfortune of growing up in a bad environment, putting it very lightly. Children are incredibly easy to mold into whatever you want them to be. She just ended up being molded into an instrument of war because of royalty and Crest obsession crashing down on her at once. Alright. That was the most I've spoken since Three Houses released, so, either Rhea or Dimitri are next, if you want to hear my thoughts on those, another 100 or so hours of gameplay. I'm going to sleep. Thanks for watching.